the crop.
Who the is that guy?
Get off at your...
I'm better than you. And you know it.
Isn't it? Restart.
This is The Law. Live audio wrestling with the latest news, info, and interviews from the world of pro wrestling, mixed martial arts, and the best of combat sports worldwide. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Tidwell and Bradie Whetham.
Wow. Oh, as you can see right there, Bradie Whetham busting a move. The DJ's on the ones and twos on that ever so invisible deck that he has. That's right, I said it. This is The Law Live Audio Wrestling. Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen. If you're joining us on YouTube, thank you so much for sparing the time to look at us. Otherwise, you're listening to all of us every week on your podcast provider, Spotify, iApple, iTunes, iHeartRadio, you name it. We's on it.
That's it. We're changing the name to our podcast listeners to the iHaps. What's going on, iHaps?
What is the haps and the iHaps? Is that what we're saying here, Brady?
Man, what a week.
Dude, craziest week ever. Completely capped off with PLE. Am I getting this right for all you youngsters out there? PLE. That's what it's called nowadays.
That is.
It's incredible. The Royal Rumble I'm talking about, which we're going to get to talk a little bit about. We have a special guest. We have somebody joining us for the first time, right, from Slam Wrestling. Bob Kapur is going to be joining us. We're going to talk a little bit about what happened at the Royal Rumble, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything that it was. Did we all enjoy it? And then, we've got a couple of little things. We are going to introduce, Brady, a new segment that from our old friend, Big Daddy Donnie. Yes,
Ooh.
One of the original guys from The Law Live Audio Wrestling. A new segment, Truth Bombs with Big Daddy. And if anybody knows or follows any of his stuff, it can be a little bit truthy. And that's kind of sometimes rubs people the wrong way.
Ruthless? Wait, I'm not allowed to do that impression anymore. Damn. I was going to...
Speaking of ruthless, I mean, yes, everything has happened this past week. Wow. Just simply wow. But anyways, we'll get into all of that. And if you are listening to us on the podcast providers, you will notice that our guest this week on the TID's Kick in the Head is none other than TNA superstar, philanthropist, entrepreneur, public speaker, all around, wow, kind of guy. I'm talking about Cody Deaner, and we get to sit down and talk to him. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can always go and watch it as well. You can do both. There's no rules. You can do anything you want, right, Brady?
You can do whatever you want.
Whatever you want. Free speech up in here. No leashes.
I forgot that happened this week too. Oh my goodness, dude. One of the craziest weeks in combat sports. And we're going to get you to it after this quick sponsor break and a message on our way back from an old friend of ours from a completely different show who we're going to introduce our listeners, our lawful listeners, our trademarks. We're going to introduce you to a friend called KJ.
Oh, lovely.
Now let's do a
TotalSportCards.com, Canada's #1 stop for WWE, AEW, UFC, NHL, NBA, and NFL hobby boxes. Total Sport Cards always delivers the most sought-after products with the best price points in the market that you can find. Keep your collection up to date with TotalSportCards.com. TotalSportCards.com, proud sponsor of Sunday night's main event.
Have you checked out East End Hamilton's newest live music venue? Vertigogo is keeping DIY music alive in the 905. January 28th, Terry Green. February 3rd, Decade. February 4th, Punk Rock Matinee with Gag Order. And in the evening, Night of the Holy Spirit Drag Show. February 15th, Cheap Chocolates. February 23rd, Golden Shitters. March 8th, Sons of Arrakis. Vertigogo brought to you by F*** You 2 Productions. Fanatickets.com.
KJ. Hello, one and all. It is I, KJ Johnson of the Colossal Tussle Podcast, and this is your Classic Clapback with KJ 1994 Royal Rumble edition. And let me tell you about it. It was the greatest moment of all time when two men, for the first time ever, won the Royal Rumble at the exact same time. How did it happen? After an incredibly lackluster Royal Rumble with not much going on other than the kabuki, the freaking crush, Jeff Jarrett running around all over the place, it came down to the final two. It was Bret Hart and Lex Luger, one incredibly hated and one a Canadian freaking hero, let me tell you. And after 30 seconds of shenanigans, both men go over the top rope. Both men touch the floor at the exact same time. It was pandemonium freaking out all over the place until President Jack Tunney comes to the rescue and declares that two men have won the Royal Rumble at the exact same time. It was an incredible moment, one of the best in Royal Rumble history, and a first ever. And by the way, Vince McMahon was also taught by Rowdy Piper how to finger some people. I'll see you next time on this day. I'm KJ.
And we are back on the Law Live Audio Wrestling. And thanks, KJ. Oh, my goodness.
I mean, he's not wrong about the finish.
Yeah, well, we'll leave that up for the FBI to figure out. Ladies and gentlemen, we had a fantastic PLE last night. I'm going to call it a pay-per-view because I'm old. We had a fantastic pay-per-view last night in one the Royal Rumble. We seen a few returns. We seen some debuts. We seen some pandemonium. And the only way that me and Chris could properly give you a review, a non-biased review on the product as a whole, is by welcoming from Slam Wrestling our old friend, our new friend to this show, but our old friend to the show, the new old, the old new, kind of like TNA, Bob Kapur. Bob, thanks very much for coming on The Law.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. It's great to see you.
It is great to see you, my friend. If anybody doesn't know who Bob is, check out Slam Wrestling. Slam Wrestling is one of probably the oldest coverage in Canada, I would assume, for professional wrestling. That's been for the longevity stake. Has been around. Yourself and Greg have been doing this for probably longer than you'd want to admit on this show. Yeah, but myself and Chris have always looked at you guys as not only a staple in media, but just a staple in how to review wrestling non-biasedly.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, Greg has been covering wrestling for over 30 years. I started with Slam in 97. So yeah, I've been in there for a while, but I appreciate the comments. And, I appreciate the sort of the collaboration that we've done through the years, through all the hosts of your show.
It's crazy, awesome. Right? It's crazy, Bob, because if you think about it, you were there shortly after all of this started with this show. You were over at Slam. Anybody who knows can go back and listen to the first episode where we recap this entire thing, where the show was originally for 1 week, Bob Kapur. This show was called Slam, the Wrestling Show. And then Greg sent us a nice little letter that said, no, you can't do that. And we said, you're right. We can't do that. So we came up with a better name. That's right. A better name. No, I'm just kidding. So I mean, yes. So, and now here we are through all of the guests that have done the law, right? And we're back to this whole thing full circle. That seems to be a theme going on in this first, I don't know, season. Is that what we're calling it, Bradie? Is it a season, this first one?
Year one.
Yeah, year one. There we go. So this is when we said we were going to do something like this, I said, it's a no-brainer. We have to absolutely have Bob from Slam Wrestling because of what you guys do. Now, that said, Bob, obviously you did watch the Royal Rumble. Overall, before we get into the ins and outs of it, did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? What did you think?
I really enjoyed the show. I thought it was, I was looking forward to it coming in as I usually do for the Royal Rumble. On this one, I think it lived up to my expectations. I was very happy with it. If I, didn't have the network and I had paid to see it on pay-per-view, I would not have felt ripped off. Like I would have felt I got my money's worth, which is, to me, that's the test of a good PLE or pay-per-view, whatever you want to call them.
Was there any surprises to you? There's the biggest surprise, Bradie.
That's the biggest surprise right there.
This is always the best part when this happens with connections.
Oh, sorry.
There you are, buddy. We got you.
Okay, yep, I'm back. So I'm not sure if you heard that. I said the big surprise for me, which was I really like to see, was TNA Knockouts champion Jordynne Grace come out in the Women's Royal Rumble.
Yeah, I thought that she had a fantastic outing. I thought that she looked great out there. She looked like she really could fit in.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully for the sake of the people that are employed by TNA, hopefully this is something that can happen in the future. Now, I don't think that the WWE is offering up any singles matches anytime soon, but this isn't the first time that they've done it either, right, Bob?
Yeah, that's right. Mickie James was in there, I think, last year when she was a Knockouts champion. So, whether this becomes an annual thing or if there becomes, that opens the door for more partnerships. And I think with the new environment in WWE, they're certainly open to that. I believe, TNA has never been shy about, letting their performers appear at other events. And I think that's a good thing for them. And it's great for Jordynne Grace too, right? Like that was a huge building, a huge audience to get to perform in front of. And I think she handled herself more than capable. She was really good. She had a good showing, as you said.
Well, she came out even wearing the Hogan colors. Now, I don't know if that was just a coincidence or if that was kind of like, I'm here now, I'm coming out. I would assume in the shape that
Bradie,
she's in, that she's a fan of the 80s gimmicks.
Bradie, those are also the new TNA colors.
Those are Hogan colors.
It's
those are Hogan's colors. I didn't see TNA's colors there.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, what did you think of Jade Cargill?
I thought she did a great job. They had, even before she had come in, I guess, when they'd been just debuting her or showing her on vignettes, they had built her up to be a megastar, right? They put her in there with Triple H, right? Welcoming her. They had her interact, but not get physical with some of the other women. And it just built up the anticipation. So when she came in, you could hear the pop from the crowd. They knew who she was and some people might not have ever seen her work before, right? Because she's only been working in AEW. And I dare say that while there's certainly some crossover, WWE has an audience that probably has not seen her work. And but they portrayed her like a star. She came in and she delivered like a star. The interaction she had with Nia Jax, and the way they worked together, and her picking up Nia and eliminating her, that created a superstar, right? She is at the upper echelon in the women's division now, just from her appearance in the Royal Rumble. I was worried because I always worry when you debut someone in a Rumble and they don't win or they just become an afterthought. That sort of puts a damper on the debut, right? And it doesn't set them right for further advancement or even for making them feel like a special moment. But they did it with her.
Yeah, I think it's it's kind of it's an old school mentality. When somebody is ready to debut, everybody kind of knows that the easiest and safest way to let them debut is to not force them into like a one-on-one singles match. You know what I mean? For the longest time, the easiest way to let somebody debut from the indie level, even all the way up, I'm talking like the beginnings of your career usually, is you debut inside of a battle royal. Mm-hmm. It's one of those like, you know what? We want you to get your footing out there. We want you to know what it's like to work out in front of a crowd. We want you to know, all of those little things, but not too much pressure because you can hide in a group. Once you're out there, the biggest thing you got to worry about is your entrance, getting in, boom, and then you can kind of hide in a corner with somebody. And the same thing happens even at the WWE level. So it was super smart. The fact that they stuck her with Becky, into a corner, Becky was like, just sit me up on top of this corner. I'm going to look at the entire match. I'm going to watch everything that's going on. Don't worry about it. I got you, right? It shows you that as much as we all thought, and still to this day do think, that Jade Cargill, absolutely, from the first time we saw her in AEW, we were like, this human being is going to be a megastar. If she stays on this trajectory, is going to be a megastar. But even at that level, you realize that the WWE just operates on a completely different level than everybody else. The fact that they still took somebody who is already a star, but you get this feeling like, oh, she's green all over again. Right?
Yep.
Now, with that said, somebody who is not green all over again, we also saw the return of Nia Jax in there. I know a lot of people have said that she had a good outing. What did you think?
Well, she certainly, I mean, they wanted to put the spotlight on her as someone who, you know, physically dominant. She had, I think, the most eliminations of the women, and she looked like, you know, the physical imposing threat that you'd expect her to be. I thought she had a, you know, pretty good outing. She didn't hurt anyone, look like, so that's a, you know, I guess a pleasant surprise. And
is that what we're going for, though? Is that what we're going for, Bob, at this level? Is that, I mean, are we saying, she didn't hurt somebody? Like, well, you would think there's got to be a higher standard, right?
I think there should be, but I think with her, that's sort of the, you know, whether it's deserved or not, that's the reputation she's got. And they've even built that up on TV, right? Like, they've made comments that the only thing she's famous for really is breaking Becky's nose. So they're even, you know, furthering that in terms of her character, is that she's dangerous. So I think that, you know, in this case, is it a low bar? Maybe, but it's the bar that's been set.
So things like the WWE, we talk about them doing things so much differently. This is go away heat. This isn't real heat. This is go away heat with Nia Jax. I would assume 60 to 75% of the people that are booing her viciously, they want her off of TV. For whatever their reason is, it's go away heat. It's very X-Pac heatish back in the day, where you're just like, all right, I've had enough.
Yeah, but people are. But I will say that people are still paying to see her, right? People are still buying tickets, and I think you can't deny that 48,000. Now, whether or not they're buying tickets to see her, she's part of that. She's part of the card, right? People are paying her. People aren't walking out, or at least that I saw during her match, or you know, during her matches, or. And they put her with the right partner, or the right, you know, dance partner, so to speak, in Becky Lynch, that people want to see it happen. And when she gets beat by Becky Lynch or whoever, you know, finally puts her down, that person automatically gets that bump, right? Like even when Jade Cargill picked her up and threw her over the top rope, that's huge. Like that was massive. You just made Jade an instant babyface reaction, right? Because look what she did to Nia. So I think you should play into that, like push the envelope with the go home heat, because it can make money.
Vicky Guerrero is a perfect description of that. They didn't want anything to do with Vicky at first. They kind of felt like this was pandering, like why was she there? And then it got over to the point now where doesn't matter what TV she walks out on. That's probably one of the nastiest reactions you're going to see for anybody, right? So yeah, I do get what you're saying.
I think there was a lot of stuff inside of that women's battle royal where we were able to write a lot of stories going forward, in my opinion, because you got to see like the face off between Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill sets up future stuff. The fact that Jade Cargill is in there with Becky sets up future stuff. The fact that Jade picks up somebody like Nia Jax also shows that there's a story that can be written there. So I think that they did a really good job as far as story writing, and whoever put it all together did a fantastic job as far as that women's battle royal went. Sure, there was some, you know, missed opportunities and a couple of blown botched spots or whatever, but
that's normal.
Who cares?
Yeah, who cares?
Who cares? If that's what you're going after, who cares, people? Come on, smarten up. Right?
So moving on from the women's Royal Rumble, we ended up going straight into the world title.
Yeah, were you surprised, Bob, that they went with this in that spot on the card?
Well, I mean, you got to flip a coin, right, between that and the Logan Paul Kevin Owens match. So not necessarily surprised. I think, is after the world title, being the ending. I think he wanted to have, well, I don't know, because I guess either ending for either match was a bit frustrating for the crowd. So I guess it's kind of a pick 'em. But if the world title match is not going to be your main event, I think you put it earlier on rather than later, because you don't want it to be directly before the main event, because then it looks a little bit more like the undercard. I think by adding another match in the middle with some distance, it's maybe the perception is it's a little higher prestige.
Yeah, who would have really thought that the match with Kevin Owens and Logan Paul would be considered the quote popcorn match in this?
Yeah, that's true.
Crazy.
Listen, I, for one, I don't know. Tell me what you thought of that finish first, Bob, that finish of that Logan Paul, Kevin Owens match.
I liked it in that it was different. Because too often it's that sort of thing happens, too often happens the other way, right? Where the heel will bust someone up with, the knucks or whatever weapon, and the referee will miss it. And then the heat goes to the referee. I think in this time, the heat probably went to the referee a little bit, but it was for the right reason, right? In terms of the story, in terms of kayfabe, it made perfect sense. Is it frustrating? Sure. Does it add heat to their feud? Yes, I think it does. And now they can open up whether or not they want to go the Vince Russo route and book a brass knuckles on a pole match, or some no DQ match, a stipulation for WrestleMania, right? That's where they can obviously lead to.
I think one of my biggest things, and this is something that I know from talking with people that I know down there, for the longest time, and this, referees have always been, they've always been kind of booked as they're the authority in the ring, but not really.
Yeah.
Right. And that's always been the story in professional wrestling. And I think you're kind of seeing that change a little bit over time, to the point now where it's like, what are we doing if we're just being utilized as a joke for this show, this story that we're putting on for people, right? So the fact, to me anyways, the fact that they did catch it, fantastic. The way that finish played out for me was great. I think even the office and the fans were surprised at how good that finish actually came off visually. It was perfect.
Well, to put a point on what you were saying as a referee, like if you don't take the referee serious, that means that the rule book is not being taken serious.
Yeah.
Which means what's the point of even having rules? You need to treat these referees like they're serious human beings. Their authority matters. And I used to love that mentality, and I think they still have it. That is, if the guy's shoulders down and he doesn't kick out, guess what?
Yeah.
I'm going home.
Well, listen, here's the way that it goes. Ready for it? You ready for it, guys? Just like when this show wasn't around for a little bit, without law, there is chaos. And if you can't, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
I couldn't even get through it. It was so stupid.
So the men's Royal Rumble. The men's Royal Rumble opens up with twin brothers, number 1, number 2. And I do feel that the crowd maybe they were a bit tired throughout the event. So that we'll just chalk it up to that. The Florida heat took them. By the time, so they weren't as loud through that Rumble as you'd think they were. They were really loud at the beginning of the night. But I do feel like that men's Rumble was a really good storytelling Rumble. Everything had a story, no pun intended.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Although I will say, to me, the Rumble really didn't start until Cody was in there and Punk, and really got became interesting when Punk got in there. The first half. I agree with you. They set the seeds or further some storylines. I think the most significant one to me was the brawl between AOP and Bobby Lashley's faction. I don't think they have a name yet, or they might, but I forget it. But to me, a lot of that was setting up for that. And when that big brawl happened, it was interesting. But until the big names that were the top 4 guys, top 5 guys at the very tippy top of the main event tier came in, you knew that none of those people were going to win. And it was entertaining, but there weren't the consequences that you want to see in a Rumble up until then. But, I had, like I said, I had fun watching it, but I could see why the crowd was a little quieter, is because, well, we know that these people aren't going to win.
Well, I got a serious question for you, Bob. How mad are you that R-Truth didn't win and is not on his way to WrestleMania to challenge for the title?
You know, not as much as you think. I guess
not
there's
as much
always,
as me then.
Yeah, there's always a good, R-Truth is consistently good at the comedy stuff. Is it the right place? He did the comedy spot in the women's match, which I thought was funny. And
amazing.
Yeah, really good. In the men's match where he was confused, thought it was a tag match, and the whole dynamic with the Judgment Day, that's sadly that's not where I want to see the Judgment Day involved in.
I agree, though. I agree.
Comedy stuff, right? He does it well, and it comes across well, but I think it's a distraction from. It's like I said, it's a juxtaposition that you've got all these serious guys in serious stories for the world title, finishing the story, right, proving whatever they have to do, and then you've got this sort of distraction. And you've got him interacting with. Now, I love the way that Priest just came in, one shot at him, took him out. Right, that's how that should have ended. But I didn't think it should have been necessarily in that match as much as it was.
If I was a writer for WWE and I was in control of the Judgment Day and R-Truth storyline, I would have let this go a couple weeks ago. I think it would be better for R-Truth to kind of go through the roster and do this kind of stuff with people, right? Always have him whoever's kind of lost for a second, even if it's like a Karrion Kross or whatever it is, have him all over the place interacting with the entire roster like this. So you never know where he's going to pop up. But I do feel like you're right. It's become almost stale with the Judgment Day thing now. It's like they're making a joke out of one of the most serious stables that you had on your main show, right? So,
well, here's my other concern, right? Is that let's say he costs Priest to cash in, right? So Priest cashes in, and all of a sudden R-Truth screws it up. What are you going to build that to? A feud between Damian Priest and R-Truth? That just seems like a major step down for Priest. So I'm not sure what the ultimate payoff is.
And that's the thing. That's really the thing at the end of this is somebody's going to have to come in, and there's going to have to be something's going to have to pull R-Truth out of that story. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is as of yet, and I don't even think they do. So they're just kind of like, let's just see where this goes. Because you can't argue with the fact that at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter other than the fact that they're selling millions and millions of shirts. The merchandise sales for R-Truth is really like, why are we fixing this? This is what's working for us, and this is where we make our money. You know what I mean? So I for one, would love to see R-Truth in something a little bit more serious, but let's face facts. He's also, 50 plus years old. And if he's found a way to get this over yet again, because this is this is just an elevated thing of what he was doing when it was the 24/7 champion thing. Yeah. So I get it. And now they've actually let him run with it. He's funny. I like it. I don't know if you guys caught this at the beginning when they had the two brothers. It was really kind of weird for me when you saw them making faces at one another. It was almost like, wait a second. Are they, because that the two of them are kind of nerdy, right? In real life, are they trying to do some weird Disney Lion King, alpha male, I growl at you, you submit with your eyes? It was this weird kind of thing. Or maybe that was just, the party I was at last night. I think
Kevin Dunn is gone. And as much as that sounds like a joke, I think Kevin Dunn is gone. And there was a lot of different shots last night that I don't think you would have normally seen. A lot of the crowd pandering so Randy did his entrance. Well, one of the key shots that Dunn's been doing forever when Randy does his entrance is when he strikes his pose, they zoom that camera and they pan around him to make him look like he's a giant and he's got the whole world in his hands, right? When he was doing that, they were out in the crowd.
Yeah.
Like this looked a lot different than a lot of WWE shows. And I don't think people noticed it as much because of the stadium effect. So I think it's just like sometimes when they're in a stadium, they're limited on what they can do. But this did look a lot different. Now, Bob, be real quick before, because we don't want to take up all your day here. What did you think about the winner?
When I did my prediction for Slam, I predicted Cody Rhodes. I think it was I think it was a storyline that made sense given what they've been building towards. I think he's the right winner because I think people do want to see that that story come to an end at WrestleMania, and I hope that they actually pull through this year and put the title on him. Because I think if you don't, then it becomes diminishing returns with Cody Rhodes. If people are going to get to the point where they either just don't believe in him, or there's going to be every time you give him a title opportunity, he's going to lose. And I think that's the challenge that they have by booking Roman the way they booked him for the past 3 years, right? But I think someone needs to beat him. I like to see Cody do that, and whether or not it's, am I buying into the hype of finishing the story? I think it's the right story, and they've been telling it right, and that's the natural conclusion.
Yeah, I think this all goes back to making good for Dusty kind of thing, and coincidentally happens to work out that Cody is that guy. Here's the thing that I noticed last night. CM Punk is good.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. We've never had that argument about it. But Cody is that much better at where he is in his career, what he's doing, his in-ring performance, just the entire package, everything about it looks that much better. And CM Punk didn't need to win the Rumble. His story is set up. Cody's story is set up. So there was really no surprises, in my opinion, about what happened on this weekend.
I'm sorry, guys. I apologize. I think I cut out again for a second.
No, you're good, my friend. You're good.
No problem. We're just rambling on there. So basically what I was saying, Bob, if you didn't hear, was I was just saying that, to finish this story for Cody Rhodes makes a lot more sense. There didn't need to be any big surprises coming out of the Rumble last night. WrestleMania we kind of know who the matches are and what's going to be. The speed bump was obviously the injury to Seth Rollins. So how do we do that? Right. I 100% think that you've got night 1 and you've got night 2. You've got your mains set now, right, for WrestleMania going into it. Now it's all of the other matches that you want to get set over. And I think they did a really good job. Again, Royal Rumble has always been one of my most favorite pay-per-views of the year. It's really the one that I'm like, nope, I'm watching this one. I'm old. 2 nights of WrestleMania. Oh, brother, right? You got to force through it, right? What do you think is going to be the biggest story that they could probably implement with somebody else? Because like I said, we know what the main events are going to be now, pretty much. They just haven't said it, right? But what do you think is going to be, what do you do with Logan Paul at this point? Do you continue it with Kevin Owens?
I think you continue. It's only 2 months. I think you continue with Kevin Owens. Like I said, you've already set the seeds for some sort of stipulation match, like a no DQ or something that can add that element of violence to it. That is the next level up. So I think you end that story. You end that there. There's the Drew McIntyre question: is who does he go up against? And it's funny because I think it would be interesting to see him against someone like Gunther. Right. And I know the dynamic might not necessarily work, the face heel dynamic, but I think it would be one heck of a good match.
Yeah.
And an interesting, a fresh and creative or a fresh and exciting match, because I don't think they've faced one another. But, go ahead.
But speaking on Gunther, just while I'm thinking about it, I feel like they're doing long-term storytelling now too, because they're telling the story of Gunther versus Cody from a year from now. They're already planting these seeds, and they have been since last year. It's really interesting with when you look at this whole, this whole landscape from a step back, you're like, oh my goodness, they're going back into long-term storytelling again. This is nice to see.
Yeah, I appreciate that direction, right? That they're doing that because it adds layers to the stories that they're telling. And then you've got these sort of wild cards that say, oh yeah, that does make sense. It might not, it might be shocking on a TV moment, but when they can go back and explain it, and they are, been doing that more recently, it adds that level of depth to what you're seeing. So I think, that's exciting. The other, big question is, do we eventually see The Rock do something with Roman? And I think you could do that as part of, set that up at Mania, even just Rock coming out and saying, and taking out the bloodline if they try to interfere in Roman and Cody. And then boom, you've got next year's WrestleMania main event set as well. And they did it before with Rock and Cena, right? Where they set the match a year later. So you could do that. Right now, it's kind of an embarrassment of riches in terms of what they can do. And it's a good time to be a fan.
And man, what a wrench is going to get thrown in when R-Truth wins Elimination Chamber. They're not going to know what to do after that. Long-term storytelling, guys.
Wow. So we are officially on the road to WrestleMania now, Bob. What's the biggest thing that you're looking forward to from now until then?
Maintain the momentum. I think Elimination Chamber is, that's the next PLE or pay-per-view that they're going to get to. So it's a matter of adding in enough question as to who's going to win that to make those matches intriguing. Right? Because if it's too predictable, then, it becomes, well, why am I watching this show? Other than the spectacle of being in Perth, right? Which I think will be interesting to see just from how their crowd reaction is. But you've got, and I think, as of last night, you've got that, right? And the women, you've got people like, you've got the Becky, you've got Bianca, you've got Jade, you've got Nia. So they could easily come up with a sextet, if you will, of people that could have an interesting match. And on the men's side, we just mentioned a bunch of the names that are still at that top tier who aren't in the title picture. So they could, do a lot of things that way too. So it's a matter of keeping that momentum. I think from a business standpoint, it's not getting distracted by the real life backstage stuff and focusing on the core content and the programming. And if, I think Triple H and his team have been doing a pretty good job, or a really good job. And if they can keep that up without being affected by the other stuff, then it's an optimistic road to WrestleMania for me.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting landscape going forward. I think one of the things, you can tell, they've said that they're going to start doing press conferences from now on after these PLEs or pay-per-views or whatever they're calling them. They're taking cues from what the UFC is doing. There's no doubt about it. But that in itself is something that New Japan has been doing for the longest time as well. Right. So they're showing growth. The WWE, who would have thought that even as big as they are, the money they bring in, the brand that they've built, they can still show something new to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do. And obviously, let's hope that the good outweighs the bad, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right?
We'll get to that later in the show. But
Absolutely.
For now, thank you very much, Bob, for coming on. We not only value your opinion, but we just value you, brother. We love you, man.
The feeling's mutual, guys. I appreciate you having me on. Appreciate what you guys do. I mean, this is a valuable forum for wrestling fans, and you guys keep on up the tradition, so it's great.
It's a different environment for sure.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, guys. We're going to try to pay a couple more bills here. When we come back, we're going to hear from, that's right, Big Daddy Donnie, and a truth bomb from him. Wow. Maybe a little bit more from KJ with his Royal Rumble weekend here. Hopefully he's got his act together by now.
I'm scared.
And of course, then we'll get down to it and we'll talk a little bit about what has happened this past week and what's going forward, because we do have a UFC fight coming up as well. This is the Law of Live Audio Wrestling. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Bob, thank you so much. And we will talk to you very soon as well, my friend.
Take care, guys.
Are you in the market for a used vehicle for your family or business? North Toronto Auction hosts public auctions twice a month, and everyone's invited. Hundreds of cars, trucks, SUVs, commercial vehicles, and heavy equipment are available. Plus, travel trailers, motorcycles, snowmobiles, ATVs, and more. View the entire selection at NorthTorontoAuction.com. Bid online or bid in person. Bid on items from government agencies, financial companies, fleet managers, car dealers, and public consigners. For more information, visit us online at NorthTorontoAuction.com.
Hey, did you know that Saturday, February 24th, Destiny World Wrestling returns to Oshawa and the Children's Arena for Destiny's Reckless?
Is that the event featuring the indie god himself, Matt Cardona?
You bet it is.
I heard he's not going to be there alone. I heard Steph DeLander's showing up. I heard Fight or Flight is showing up. Vanna Black, Tara Zepp, Lindsay Dorado, and a whole bunch more.
Man, you better get your tickets now. They're on sale at www.destinywrestling.ca.
Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button to get all the latest from the Law, live audio wrestling. Now back to the show.
KJ. It is I, KJ Johnson of the Colossal Tussle podcast with this, a classic clapback with KJ Johnson, Royal Rumble 2000, Madison Square Garden, incredible action, jam-packed to the rafters, and what do we have in this one? Royal Rumble, we don't even need to worry about over the top rope. We don't even need to worry about all of the bust-em-ups and fighting and shenanigans, because what we got is Rikishi, Grandmaster Sexay, Scotty 2 Hottie. They are dancing right in the ring. A middle, a first in Madison Square Garden, a first in Royal Rumble history, where three men are busting a move in the world's most famous arena. But Rikishi, ever the spoil sport, clotheslines both men, tosses out his two buddies because it's every man for himself. But there's always some time to do a little jig as you're rumping up that pig roast in the middle of Madison Square Garden. Shame he didn't win, but by the way, Vince McMahon and Bob Backlund having a sex dungeon orgy on this day. KJ.
Hey everyone, my name is Big Daddy Donnie DeSilva, and I'm here to drop a truth bomb. And this week, what I want to do is I want to talk about you. Okay, well, maybe not all of you, but there are those of you that are part of the toxic vocal minority of professional wrestling fans. Now, let me rewind. For almost 3 years, Jade Cargill was a member of the AEW roster, having debuted on November 11th, 2020. In her very first appearance, she was teamed up with NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal versus Cody Rhodes and Red Velvet. And since that very first match, the AEW fan base were absolutely toxic. They came at her with comments like, she's garbage, she can't wrestle, she sucks, give her spot to someone else. On January 5th, 2022, she became the inaugural TBS champion, defeating Ruby Soho. Her entire gimmick was essentially revolving around the fact that she was unbeatable. They put her on this wild win streak that eventually mounted up to 60-0, and during that time, none of her matches really had any semblance of story, character development, or intrigue. That's not her fault, folks. That's how she was used. They were all glorified squash matches. I think she bumped less in those 60 matches than Chris Tidwell did in the last 6 years of his entire career. Tony Khan constantly compared her to Bill Goldberg, which was a mistake on so many levels. But much like Goldberg's run, neither WCW or AEW had any idea how to maintain her status after the streak ended. It was her identity, just like it was Goldberg's. Predictably, the "we love work rate and 5-star match" crowd went even more toxic. Get her back to training. She sucks. When Jade's contract was set to expire, she let AEW know her intention was not to resign. And as soon as that nose broke, well, here come the neckbeards out in full force. Does she think she's going to do better in WWE? They're going to see she sucks and they're going to bury her. They're only signing her to keep her from AEW. They'll never use her. She's garbage. In September of 2022, WWE announced they had signed Jade. She made a few TV appearances and then went straight to the Performance Center. She was there because she's still green. She hadn't really learned much working for the competition, and she needed to be taught how to tell stories in the ring. The media had started to grow impatient over the last couple months, and they were grilling Triple H at press conferences. When will we see Jade Cargill? Some even went so far as to suggest WWE regretted the signing because there was nothing they could do with her. Triple H was clear. He said Jade will start when we know she's ready for whatever we throw at her. And last night, by God, she was ready. Jade Cargill made her official WWE debut at the 2024 Royal Rumble, and with all apologies to L.A. Knight, she became an absolute mega star. She has that natural charisma, and there were fans who weren't familiar with her that became fans by the end of the night. She may have taken more bumps in the few minutes she had in that Rumble than she did during her entire 508 days as TBS champion. And despite what you may have thought about her previously, she didn't need to win to establish herself. She went face to face with established names, held those moments for the crowd. She picked up Nia Jax without a post and still took the time to flex her bicep. That stare down with Bianca at center ring was magic. So to the toxic fans who love to say stuff like, Cody going back to WWE, he's going to be a mid-card joke again. CM Punk will be fired in a month because he's a trash human being. Or Jade Cargill's garbage and she'll never get over in WWE. Let me ask you, how's it feel to be completely dead-ass wrong? You know, being the bitter expert who craps on everything is just so cliche. Trust me, I've been there. I'm Big Daddy Donnie. You don't have to agree with me, but it is the truth.
Do you have a podcast? Are you looking for high-profile guests for your show but don't know how to get in touch with them? Go to podstars.net. That's podstars.net. For less than $9 a month, you can get access to a huge selection of celebrity guests, like wrestling superstar The Blue Meanie, to musicians like Marty Ray, and even actors like Tom Arnold. Podstars is the place to go to connect with everything you need for your podcast. So go to podstars.net with a Z to get signed up. At podstars.net, you'll be happy that you did. Wow, look at that, huh? Look at that. Look at old Bobby there. At the end of that plug. Wow.
And we are back on the Law Live Audio Wrestling. Wow, it has been an exciting episode, and it has been an exciting week in the world of professional wrestling. What do you got? I don't know what. You know,
why do we feel like, you know, you're taking that walk down the street and you can clearly see that there is a gigantic pile of shit on the sidewalk that you're walking towards. And you're like, well, I don't want to give up my walking space. So you don't step in the shit, and you don't want to give up your walking space so that I don't step in the shit. You know, so at some point, do we ask ourselves, do we just hold hands and skip over it, or do we cross the street and go the other way?
Look at Vince McMahon's a fucking pervert. We all had a feeling this entire time, depending on how long you have been watching the business, whether it's been a week or it's been 40 years.
Sure.
The guy's a fucking perv. He got outed. If you live your life like this at any point, it doesn't matter if you did it for 1 week or you did it the whole time. You will get outed. There is a thing called karma, motherfucker, and it's coming for you, bitch. Now, these are just accusations, and this is just my opinion, and I stand beside nothing. I don't believe in anything. I am just a human being that's watching this all unfold.
I stand beside nothing. That's right. And when you see them, you tell them I said nothing. Okay?
All right. My last statement on this. My last statement. You wouldn't let her wash the feces off, okay? It's just too much.
Listen, and we've said this before, because you and I have had this conversation off air. You and I have had this conversation off. Okay. The reason that it icks us out is because we're not into it, right? But
no, there's a lot more than just that.
Bradie, I'm going to point you in the direction. Now, I don't know if this is a real website or not, but www.scatlovers.com.
No, do not. We're not getting into this.
Is a real thing. I don't know if that website is a real thing, but websites like it are a real thing, and people pay money. People pay money, and people go to these websites and buy memberships to be parts of these websites. So clearly there's a demographic of human out there that is into it and is accepting of it and is okay with it. Just like there's a demographic of people out there that are okay and accepting of nudist colonies. Okay, not my thing, but that doesn't mean that it's not accepted by some people. However, We here think that it is absolutely vulgar.
I'm
and
not
disgusting.
The reason why why even I just used I drew to the fecal thing and I drew to the pooping thing, because that's the only thing that you can talk about that isn't completely disgusting, predatorial, and it also hasn't been proven yet. And I'm not defending anybody or anything. It's just not a zone I want to. I'm going across the street, bro.
So you decided to take the shitty take instead.
I don't know what else. What other? Remember when I called you and I was like, "How are we going to do this show this week?"
Sure.
How the fuck are we going to get through this? How are we supposed to talk about this?
Well,
I don't want to talk about this.
Okay.
And somehow we're talking about this.
Correct. Because we would be remiss if we didn't talk about it.
The guy seems to be a fucking predator.
Right. I mean, by all accounts, the words that have been put out there, and this is another part of the conversation that I've had with you. We all know, ladies and gentlemen, we all know how books are written. We all know how words work. We all know that when you write something down on paper in the form of a book, in the form of a letter, in the form of a poem, we all know that those words are meant to elicit some kind of reaction, some kind of emotion, some kind of visual in your head. That's why they're put there. That's why we have adjectives. That's why we have things like this to describe. So the words that were put down in all of this, just like the words that were put down in the text messages that were sent, okay, the words that were put down in the legal documents are meant to paint a picture. And the picture being painted right now does not look good for Mr. McMahon, Mr. Laurinaitis, and an unnamed WWE/UFC champion.
And a physical therapist and a bunch of other people in the company, tech guys. There's a whole bunch of people involved here, apparently. Now, I read all 67 pages, 300 paragraphs of this.
See, I didn't.
And I'm not, I don't even have, I got nothing to say. I agree with Triple H yesterday at the press conference last night or this morning, depending on whenever you watched it. It's been a good week. Let's just focus on the positive. I don't want to focus on the negative.
Yeah, which is 100% correct, because all we've got at this point is that initial, the initial volley of bombs. So
I wasn't involved. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not a detective. So my opinion on this matters.
Hold on, Bradie. Hold on, brother. You forgot the most important part. The most important one. I need you to look right into the camera. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, we're not journalists.
Nope. I'm a broadcaster, and I'm doing a great job of it.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is an opinion piece, and my opinion is I'm staying out of it until they figure out what's going on and some charges are actually pressed and stuff like that. So
yeah, it's a wild world that we live in. There's no doubt about it. If they
can we continue to make jokes and not add any realism to it, so we don't look like insensitive pricks?
Well, yes.
Okay.
You absolutely have to, because everybody knows that the power of comedy is the absurdity in the situation.
Yeah.
100%.
So moving on from the Scatman.
Suck it.
Moving on from Scatman.
Beep bop bibbity boop boop beep boppity boo.
We got a UFC coming up, and Chris, let's do a quick rundown of this card before we roll this ride out for the week.
You're gonna put me on the spot here right now, aren't you?
No. I'm not,
because
gonna put you
all
on
of my
spot.
stuff, all of my stuff just died right out.
Oh,
so
did it?
We just gotta pull this up real quick on this other thing. But that's okay, because it's not really that strong of a card to begin with, right? If you think about it, because it's
just give me some highlights.
Well, okay, you've got the main event, of course, right? Is Delite and Imavov. Right? Which is going to be one hell of a fight. There's no doubt about it. So, listen, Drew Dober, Renato Moicano. Drew Dober, Renato Moicano. Okay? Fantastic. And Randy Brown is back, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, my goodness. Randy Brown.
These are the cards These are the cards that are going to set up in betweens for the people that were, or the fights that we're going to get at like 298, which is coming up next for the UFC. Then 299, then of course 300, which holy crap, ladies and gentlemen. Can we just talk about 300 for a quick second, Bradie?
We've been getting complaints
because wait, here's another thing that happened this past week. The UFC signed fucking Kayla Harrison, bro.
Yes, I did see that.
And she's fighting Holly Holm.
Goodbye,
at 130 at 135 pounds. Ladies and gentlemen, Kayla Harrison used to compete at 175 pounds.
Yeah, I was going to say 170, right? Yeah.
Okay.
There's rumors now too that there's weight divisions getting switched up, that there may be a 165 and 175 pound weight division for the men's. We got a lot going on in the world of combat sports.
As it stands right now, we still don't have a main event for 300.
We don't.
I mean, we do. There is a championship fight. There's 2 belts on the line. One of them a real one, but we don't have a main event because I'm sorry, but the main of the title fight that's there right now between Weili Zhang, right? It's just not a strong enough. It's not a strong enough fight.
Well, and the rumors are this week too was Dana saying that there's a super fight. It's not even for 300, but there's a super fight coming up here in the next couple of months that's going to blow everybody's minds.
Well, this would be a perfect opportunity to have somebody like Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler fight for that new 165-pound title. Get rid of 70 and go throw in a 65 and make 70 go up to 75.
Yep.
So you got 75, then 85, and 205. Right? I think that's great. And have Conor and Chandler fight for that inaugural 165 belt. Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You're going to get a lot of guys, at 55 who are like, I don't have to cut weight now. And then are going to still fight at 165 and would still dust both of those dudes.
I think it's going to switch up the division quite a bit. The middleweight and welterweight divisions are going to be basically blended now.
Yeah. Could you imagine? I mean, here's the downside though. Think about this. Do you have more guys thinking that it's much easier to become champ?
Yeah.
Because it's a big jump between 55 and 70, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you got that middle point, if you're fighting at 65 and then there's a 75 and then there's an 85, you're going to have a lot more guys that are like, well, I just feel like, being all DC this week. And I'm going to just fight at whatever I weigh in that day.
You could potentially see a triple champ at one point too, depending on if somebody dominant like a Bo Nickel or somebody like that comes along and just holds those divisions down. Bo Nickel's probably the guy that would be best fitting for the job right now, but you never know where the sport's going to end up in 5 years. You never know where it's going to end up in literally the end of the year, let alone 5 years, right? So
listen, we don't know where any of that is going to end up, but what we don't want is, showing what the actions of this week can be is we don't need any more of those 3-way champs, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just saying.
Well, my friend, let's do a quick preview of Tid's Kick in the Head this week. YouTube listeners, by the time you're done watching this, you can just go click the link. It will be ready for you. Audio listeners, seamless. Just stick around. But that's it for me this week. But yeah, give us a quick little heads up on what we're about to hear.
So I got a chance to sit down with longtime friend and colleague, Impact and TNA star, Cody Deaner. And I've known Cody for forever, it seems like. I have a lot of respect for Cody, and we sit down and we talk about a lot of things that you don't normally get a chance to talk about, with Cody. We talk about his life as a public speaker. We talk about his life as becoming a producer inside of TNA. We even talk about him taking on this whole thing, starting to do podcasts, which is what he does with his Wrestling is Life, Life is Wrestling. So it's a really good conversation. Please go check it out. Share it with your friends. You can check out all of my other stuff over on @Tid Talks on YouTube. And please do so, because we are trying to, I don't know if you know this or not, share all of this with your friends, because we are going to try to monetize this stuff so that we can do bigger and better things for you guys as well. Right? Membership has its perks. So let's try to get all of this up there. For me, that's about it. Bradie, what you got?
I am just looking forward to another interesting week. I hope no more lawsuits come out. I am stoked for the future of the road to WrestleMania, and I am even more stoked for the road to UFC 300. I cannot wait to see what comes about over the next couple weeks. But that's it for me this week. I'll see you next week, guys. Tid, you got anything you want to say?
Tuck your chin, ladies and gentlemen.